Many of you have asked me about the connection Canada has with the World Economic Forum, saying that there's this plan and a lot of Canada's policies that they've put in place deals specifically with the World Economic Forum, and that's why they're in place. Maybe it's part of a broader, global push by the WEF to get more and more countries in alignment. I don't know about that so much, but I do want to explore policies that the World Economic Forum has put forward that, interestingly enough, are very parallel to what Canada's implemented. And there's perhaps no better indicator of that than digital ID. But before I get into that, I just want a brief explainer on what the World Economic Forum is for those that don't know or are less aware. It took me a bit of time to just kind of get the 30,000 feet view of the World Economic Forum as well, because as I understand, it's a non-governmental organization in Geneva, Switzerland, founded in the 1970s by German economist Klaus Schwab. But I don't know if it's a for-profit or non-profit. So that might be a bit confusing. But regardless, it's a venue for political leaders, business leaders, and others, academics, CEOs, to discuss economic cooperation. So I've been trying to figure out why the World Economic Forum exists versus other platforms like the G7, the G20, etc. The only thing I could say that it's differential is that it's non-governmental. So it does call for more public and private collaboration. So perhaps that's the differentiator. It merges public and private with governments. And so they talk about climate change, economic growth, emerging technologies. These are just some of the topics that they discuss at the World Economic Forum. Now, interestingly enough, the World Economic Forum puts forward research papers, academic articles about some ideas that they have that they want governments to just at least look at or implement. And the past 10 to 15 years, they've really focused on digital identification. So the WEF calls this the fourth industrial revolution, where physical, digital, and biological systems all increasingly overlap and interact with each other. And so from their perspective, when we have this system, it helps people access healthcare, education, travel, and finance on one trusted credential. And this helps people access, again, healthcare, education, travel, and finance, and other areas. And so as I was reading their papers, I was looking at my phone and I was thinking to myself, there's so much integration this phone has in my daily life, and I'm sure for many of you as well. I use it to buy groceries. I use it to buy tickets to a Jays game or whatever. But it stores a lot of data. I recently traveled and I used my phone for a lot of the verification, of course, that physical passport as well. But it was interesting that I realized how dependent I was on this thing and how much data it actually holds. And I was thinking to myself, if there's a data breach, there's a lot of information that thing has about me that I've willingly given up without really, I know there's terms and conditions, but I really haven't really read those through. And I'm sure many haven't as well. And then I thought to myself, oh, this is so great for traveling. This is so great for paying for things. Maybe in the future, it'll have my health card on it. And I can go to any walking clinic and scan it or something. And they'll know my entire history just by scanning my phone without me digging in my pocket for my health card or forgetting my health card. 100% from a convenience factor, I think there's a lot of benefit. But security and our charter rights and freedoms comes into play. Let me explain, because I wanted to look at this not just from a convenience factor, but from a real digital, from a charter rights and freedoms perspective, because that is pretty scary that this phone has so much power. Okay, so there's a couple things that I wanted to just pose to you as questions for our charter. One, Section 6. So, Section 6 affirms mobility rights for Canadians. It allows us to move freely across provinces and to leave or enter Canada. So, going back to the phone, and say in the future my passport is on my phone, um, if there's a failure in any of those digital systems, say there's like internal server errors, which is very common, as we all know, um, or something goes wrong with your phone, or something happens, you can now, and let's just say they remove the physical passport altogether, because, in many places of our lives right now, they're removing the physical card, like, taking public transit, they're removing the physical card. Like now you tap your phone or whatever, right? So imagine for a second, the government says, we're no longer issuing physical passports. Everything is now mobile and electronic. If something goes wrong with those systems, which is very possible, you may not be able to travel, right? And that is guaranteed to you in Section 6 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Your passport will be up to date. You would have had to taken your photo. You've done everything right. And suddenly you don't have mobility rights. And I know that's an extreme circumstance, but I don't think that's as extreme as we might believe. And the reason I say that too is because I remember during the pandemic, there were court cases of people who were trying to see their loved ones whose loved ones had passed or were about to, and they couldn't travel to see them because of the global pandemic. And those same individuals took the government to court saying like, hey, Section 6 mobility rights. Um, and the courts later struck it down saying, hey, there was a global pandemic, et cetera, et cetera. But regardless, I do think that Section 6 of our charter runs completely counter to a digital ID when it comes to travel, because you have to guarantee mobility rights even if someone's phone is down or the server's down. You still have to allow them that ability to travel. So in a way, like the physical passport has to like basically always exist. Okay, so but there's also like other sections of the charter that I'd love to know your opinions on. Section 7, commonly cited, right to life, liberty, and security. So here's something to consider, because I know I know people in my life who just really refuse to put any of their data online. Like even online shopping, they're very hesitant about, signing up, putting their credit card information. Like they're really trying to figure out other ways to buying things online without putting personal information on. And so if someone refuses, say, they want to go completely analog. I remember watching like Aziz Ansari recently talk about how he has a flip phone. I'm like, that's cool. I don't know how you function in a day-to-day life without like an actual smartphone. But let's say in the future, we access our healthcare through our phone. We access education through our phone. Like, well, Canada education different, but you say, I don't want that. I don't want a smartphone. I don't want any of that. Will you be denied healthcare coverage because of that? I know, again, this sounds very tinfoil hat, and I get that, but this is where a digital ID system butts up against our charter. And then the other thing that I think is really important, and again, this is something that I think about quite a bit. Maybe I'm a bit out there, but I do think about this. Section 8 does protect us against unreasonable search and seizure. So, for example, there's a privacy element to all of this, right? Like the government can't unreasonably search and seize your phone. So again, like I'm just going to think about this logically. And with such a prominent digital ID, like all these systems are interacting and talking to each other. Now, let's just say hypothetically, because in Canada, a firearms license is required to own firearms. Now, I don't have a firearms license, and I don't know what the purchasing process is, but let's just use this hypothetical situation. Like, say I get my firearms license, and say, again, it's not part of this digital ID, right? Because you have to go to the government, da, da, da. and I purchase a firearm online. Like, because all these systems are interacting and say my firearms license is not part of the system, like, will I now be flagged by the government to say, like, hey, why did you buy this thing online, or like whatever? Or say I buy, I mean, like, it's this whole thing. I was just thinking about just the other day. I'm like, what if that happens? Right? Like, why should my purchases be subject to scrutiny? As long as like everything's above board, everything's legal, why would my purchases and the types of purchases I'm making, the themes of my purchase, my preferences in what I purchase, I can see that data being potentially used by governments, and maybe they'll be like, hey, like, we've noticed you're spending on X, Y, and Z. That's kind of weird for you. What's going on? Like, again, I know it sounds like tinfoil hat. Oops. I know that sounds very like tinfoil hat, but like, again, I do think that's a possibility. So I'd love to know from you what you think about this, because, again, these are real concerns. Now, there's a couple things I just want to say before I end, which I'm going to do a deeper dive on. So don't fear, I will do a deeper dive on. But Canada has actually implemented WEF style digital ID systems. So what the World Economic Forum has actually put forward as an idea, Canada has implemented. The Known Traveler Digital Identity Toolkit. It was launched in 2018 in both Canada and the Netherlands, and it aims to let travelers share verified data with border agencies before arrival using cryptography and biometrics. Again, I'm going to do a deeper dive on that. As well, here in Canada, we do have the Pan-Canadian Trust Framework, which sets national standards for verifying identity online. And then there's also the Digital Charter that was introduced in 2019, which talks about trust and transparency. So I'm going to go through Canada's implementation of these WEF style ideas in more detail in subsequent videos. But I just wanted to start the conversation about how this non-governmental organization has put forward ideas that challenge our charter, and also Canada has implemented some of them. So let me know below. I think this is the conversation we should be having, because the WEF is a non-democratically elected body that holds quite significant power over the policies that Canada pursues. Because I think if you put digital ID to the general public, like if you were to actually ask people about it, I don't know if most people would be in favor of it, because I think people would be in favor of it from a convenience factor, right? They'd be like, wait, I go to the airport, you're not going to like, strip search me, and you're not going to like fumble to find my documents. All I have to do is scan my phone or whatever, and you have that. Great. I go to the, grocery store, I buy things, I don't have to fumble in my pocket for like the oh shoot, I forgot the $20 bill. Great. Oh, I can go to a Jays game, a concert, etc. I just scan my phone instead of like fumbling to figure out where my tickets are. Great. Like, convenience factor, great. But then it comes to like traveling, when it comes to like, where are my documents? The system's down. When it comes to going to access healthcare services, will I be denied? That's where I think Canadians would have real issue with. And what's weird is that I don't know if there's enough public consultation on that. So this is just going to be the first of many on this topic. But I want us to chat more about it, because I think this is also really important that we talk to our elected officials about this kind of strange like parallel that's happening with the WEF without our involvement. Anyways, I hope you enjoy that. I know my camera was out of focus for a bit. Hopefully that wasn't for too much. I'll definitely catch you in the next one. Take care.